The human ship appeared in Zephyrian space without warning. One moment, Admiral Vextai was watching empty stars on his display. The next, a massive metal vessel was hanging in orbit around their home world like a sleeping predator. "Sir," Lieutenant Cavus called out, his voice shaking. "The human ship it's enormous, 3 times the size of our largest battleship." Vextai studied the alien vessel on his screen. It looked nothing like Zephyrian ships, which were smooth and curved like seashells. The human ship was all sharp angles and hard edges. Weapons jutted out from its hull like teeth. It looked like it was built for one purpose: killing. "They're requesting permission to land a shuttle," Cavus reported. "Granted," Vextai said, "and prepare the diplomatic chambers. Make sure everything is comfortable for our guests." The Zephyrian diplomatic chambers were designed to welcome peaceful visitors. Soft lighting, low gravity, filtered air, and comfortable seating areas where beings could relax and discuss problems calmly. The temperature was kept cool, and gentle music played in the background to promote harmony. Ambassador Quintal waited in the main chamber with 12 other diplomatic staff. They had prepared gifts of art and literature to welcome their saviors. They expected to meet with human diplomats, perhaps a few military advisors, and some scientists interested in cultural exchange. Instead, the airlock opened and armed soldiers walked out. The lead human was tall and broad, wearing some kind of armored suit. His face was scarred, and his eyes moved constantly, checking every corner of the room like he expected an attack. Behind him came 6 more humans, all carrying weapons that looked far too large for their bodies. "I am Captain Ryan Brooks of the United Earthship Defiance," the lead human said. His voice was deep and rough. "We received your distress call." Ambassador Quintal tried to hide his shock. These beings looked exactly like the monsters from their nightmares. Tall, muscular, with forward-facing eyes that marked them as natural predators. Their skin was different colors, some pale, some dark, but they all had the same dangerous look. "Welcome," Quintal managed to say. "I am Ambassador Quintal of the Zephyrian Collective. We are grateful for your response to our call for help." Captain Brooks looked around the diplomatic chamber and frowned. "This room is too soft. Do you have somewhere with normal gravity and air?" "This is our most comfortable environment," Quintal explained. "Low gravity reduces stress, and the filtered air removes all harmful elements." "Lady, where I come from, stress keeps you alive," Brooks said. "And filtered air makes you weak. We need a place where we can breathe real atmosphere and walk normally." The Zephyrians quickly prepared a different room, but they had to use their industrial spaces because nowhere else had the gravity and atmosphere the humans wanted. When they watched the humans walk into the new room, they got their first real shock. The humans moved easily in gravity that would crush most Zephyrian bones. They breathed air that contained elements toxic to 12 different species. One of the human soldiers casually picked up a cargo container that normally required mechanical assistance to move. "My gods," whispered Dr. Nelthan, the Zephyrian xenobiologist. What kind of world did these beings come from? Dr. Helen Park, the human scientist, heard the question and smiled. "Earth," she said simply. "Gravity 2.5 times what you're used to. Atmosphere full of oxygen and nitrogen. Weather systems that can kill you in minutes, predators everywhere. Diseases that evolve faster than medicine. It's a lovely place once you get used to it." The Zephyrian stared at her in horror. This human, female, was describing a hell world and calling it lovely. Commander Amy Chen, the human tactical officer, was studying the strategic displays with Admiral Vextai. She looked at the numbers showing the approaching Korthak fleet and nodded. 200 ships, she said calmly. "That's a decent challenge." Challenge? Vextai couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Commander Chen, they outnumber us 40-1. This is not a challenge. This is certain death." Chen looked at him with confusion. "Admiral, you asked for military assistance. We're here to fight. 200 enemies means we'll need to be efficient, but it's nothing we can't handle. But how can one ship fight 200? Who said anything about one ship?" Chen smiled, and Vextai noticed that human smiles showed their teeth like a threat display. "We brought friends." Lieutenant Ben Foster was monitoring Korthak communications from his position at the human equipment. The technology was completely different from anything the Zephyrians used, but it seemed more powerful. "Captain," Foster called out, "I'm reading their transmissions. These Korthaks aren't just raiders. They're a military empire. They've conquered 47 different species in the last century. They don't take prisoners, and they don't negotiate." Captain Brooks nodded. "Good intel, Foster. Saves us the trouble of trying to be diplomatic." Ambassador Quintal felt his heart stopping. "Captain Brooks, surely we can find a peaceful solution. Perhaps if we offered the Korthak something they wanted." "Ambassador," Brooks interrupted, "let me explain something about humans. We tried peaceful solutions on our world for thousands of years. You know what we learned? Some beings only understand one language: violence. These Korthaks have killed billions of your people. They're not going to stop because you ask nicely." Dr. Park was examining Zephyrian biology data and making disturbing discoveries. "Captain, I'm analyzing the local species. The Zephyrians evolved on a low-gravity world with no major predators. Their bone density is half of human normal. Their muscle mass is designed for endurance, not strength. They've never had to fight for survival." "What about the Korthaks?" Brooks asked. "Standard conquering species. Larger than humans, probably. Stronger individually. But they evolved for dominance over weaker beings. They've never fought anyone who fought back effectively." Brooks grinned, and several Zephyrians stepped backwards unconsciously. "This is going to be interesting." Ambassador Quintal watched the humans prepare for battle with growing dread. They moved with casual efficiency, checking weapons that looked like they could destroy small buildings. They talked about the coming fight like humans might discuss a sports game. "What have we done?" he whispered to Admiral Vextai. "I don't know," Vextai replied, watching Commander Chen explain human battle tactics to his officers. "But I think we're about to find out why civilized species don't contact Deathworlders." The humans seemed excited about the approaching battle. The Zephyrians were beginning to understand that they hadn't just called for help. They had invited something far more dangerous than the Korthaks into their peaceful corner of the galaxy. The Korthak war fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a swarm of angry insects. 200 ships, each one larger than anything the Zephyrians had ever built. Battle Commander Thraxul stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Bloodclaw, and smiled with satisfaction. "Another easy conquest," he told his second-in-command. "The prey species always surrender when they see our full strength." Thraxul had conquered 47 worlds for the Korthak Empire. The pattern was always the same. Show overwhelming force, destroy a few cities, and the weak aliens would beg for mercy. Then his people would take everything worth taking and leave the survivors to serve as slaves. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the planet. They're requesting terms for surrender." "Ignore them," Thraxul ordered. "We'll burn a few of their cities first. Fear makes them more cooperative." But then something appeared on his sensors that had never happened before. A single ship was rising from the planet's surface, heading straight for the Korthak fleet. "Sir, one enemy vessel is approaching our position. It appears to be attacking us." Thraxul laughed. "One ship against 200? These aliens must be insane. Destroy it quickly." The human ship UES Defiance accelerated toward the Korthak fleet at impossible speed. Captain Brooks sat in his command chair, watching the enemy formation with professional interest. "Commander Chen, what's your tactical assessment?" he asked. "They're flying in a standard intimidation formation," Chen replied, studying her displays. "Designed to look impressive, but not optimized for actual combat. Their ships are spread too, wide, and their heavy weapons are pointed forward. Classic mistake of a species that's used to fighting prey instead of predators." Weaknesses? Multiple. Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons, not kinetic projectiles. Their formation has gaps we can exploit, and sir, they're not expecting us to actually fight back. Brooks grinned. "Let's educate them. All weapons prepare to fire." The first Korthak ship to die never knew what hit it. The Defiance's railguns fired solid metal projectiles at 10% the speed of light. The Korthak shields, designed to deflect energy beams, were completely useless against chunks of metal moving at relativistic speeds. The projectile punched through the Korthak ship's hull like it was made of paper. Secondary explosions tore the vessel apart from the inside. One moment it was there, the next it was expanding debris. "What just happened?" Thraxul demanded. "The enemy ship destroyed the Razor Claw with a single shot, sir. Their weapons appear to be kinetic." Thraxul stared at his displays in confusion. Kinetic weapons were primitive. Civilized species used energy weapons because they were more efficient and easier to control. Only barbarians threw rocks at each other. "Return fire," he ordered. The Korthak fleet opened up with everything they had. Energy beams designed to slice through armor plating converged on the human ship, but the Defiance didn't try to avoid them. Instead, it flew directly into the weapons fire. "Sir, their shields are absorbing our weapons," the tactical officer reported in panic. Captain Brooks watched the energy readings with satisfaction. "Chief White, how are our shields holding?" Chief Engineer Danny White's voice came over the comm from the engine room. "No problems, Captain. Their energy weapons are actually charging our capacitors. It's like they're giving us free fuel." The humans had designed their shields differently than other species. Instead of deflecting energy, human shields absorbed it and converted it to power. It was a typically human solution. Turn the enemy's attack into an advantage. "Sir," White continued, "I'm redirecting the extra power to our weapons systems. We're now operating at 150% normal capacity." "Outstanding. Commander Chen, let's show them how humans fight." What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for centuries. The Defiance didn't fight like any species the Korthaks had ever encountered. Instead of staying at long range and trading shots, the human ship charged directly into the enemy formation. Brooks had learned warfare on Earth, where hesitation meant death and aggression was often the best defense. The Defiance twisted and spun through the Korthak fleet like a dancer, its weapons firing constantly. Each shot destroyed or crippled an enemy vessel. "They're inside our formation," Thraxul screamed. "How did they get so close?" "Sir, they're not following standard battle doctrine. They're flying through our crossfire zones and using our own ships as cover." The Korthaks tried to adjust, but their tactics were designed for fighting enemies who behaved predictably. The humans fought like nothing they had ever seen. The Defiance would appear behind a Korthak ship, destroy it, then disappear before return fire could be aimed. Lieutenant Foster was having the time of his life. "Captain, I've hacked their communications network. They're using unencrypted channels because they never expected anyone to fight back. I can feed them false orders." "Do it," Brooks ordered. Suddenly, Korthak ships began receiving contradictory commands. Some were ordered to advance while others were told to retreat. Ships collided with each other as their formation fell apart. Commanders argued over who was giving real orders and who was compromised. "This is psychological warfare," Dr. Park observed, watching the chaos. "We're not just attacking their ships. We're attacking their confidence and command structure." Sergeant Maria Rodriguez led a boarding party onto the Korthak flagship. She and her Marines used shaped charges to blow through the hull, then fought their way toward the bridge. The Korthak warriors were individually larger and stronger than humans, but they had never faced opponents who fought with such controlled violence. The Korthaks expected combat to be simple. They were bigger, so they should win. But the humans moved like they had been born fighting. They used the ship's corridors and rooms as weapons, turning every corner into an ambush point. "They fight like demons," one Korthak warrior screamed before Rodriguez put 3 bullets in his chest. "No," she replied, reloading her weapon calmly. "We fight like humans." Battle Commander Thraxul watched his fleet disintegrate around him. In 30 minutes, the humans had destroyed or disabled 70 ships. His remaining forces were scattered and demoralized. Many were already trying to flee. "Sir, we should retreat," his second-in-command suggested. "Retreat?" Thraxul couldn't believe what he was hearing. "The Korthak Empire does not retreat. Sir, these aren't like any species we've fought before. They're not trying to survive. They're trying to win. There's a difference." The final blow came when the human boarding party reached the flagship's bridge. Thraxul found himself facing a small human female, who didn't look particularly dangerous. He was twice her size and armed with the best weapons his empire could produce. Sergeant Rodriguez looked at the alien commander and smiled. Surrender now, and we'll let you live. Thraxul attacked instead. It was the last mistake he ever made. When the battle ended, 130 Korthak ships were destroyed or captured. The rest fled in complete disorder. The mighty Korthak Empire, terror of the galaxy, had been broken by a single human. Vessel Admiral Vextai watched the aftermath in stunned silence. The humans had won a victory that should have been impossible, and they had done it while laughing and joking like it was just another day at work. "What have we unleashed?" he whispered. 3 months after the battle, Admiral Vextai sat in his office staring at reports he could barely believe. The galaxy had changed, and it was all because of one desperate decision to contact the humans. The first report came from the Galactic Intelligence Network. Every major species in known space was talking about the human incident. The complete destruction of the Korthak war fleet by a single enemy ship had sent shockwaves through galactic politics. "Sir," Lieutenant Cavas entered the office with more data files. "We have updates from the border systems." Vextai opened the first file and felt his heart sink. The Korthak Empire, which had terrorized the galaxy for 2 centuries, had completely changed their expansion strategy. They were no longer attacking anyone. Instead, they had marked a huge section of space around Earth as a forbidden zone and were actively avoiding it. "They're calling it the Deathworld Quarantine Zone," Cavas explained. "No Korthak ship is allowed within 50 light-years of human space." The second file was worse. Battle Commander Thraxul, now promoted to High Command after surviving the human encounter, had issued new military doctrine to all Korthak forces. The document was titled Combat Protocols for Engagement with Apex Predator Species. Vextai read the report with growing dread. The Korthaks described humans as the most dangerous species encountered in galactic history. They recommended immediate retreat if human ships were detected, and suggested that any species allied with humans should also be avoided. "What have we become?" Vextai whispered. The third file contained intelligence about human activities since the battle. Earth had not sent 1 ship to help the Zephyrians, they had sent 12. The human fleet was now permanently stationed in Zephyrian space, conducting what they called routine patrols. Captain Brooks had established a base on Zephyria's 3rd moon. The humans claimed it was for mutual defense, but Vextai suspected they were really studying the local species and technology. Every day, more human ships arrived. Every day, Earth's presence in the system grew stronger. Ambassador Quintal arrived for his daily briefing, looking more exhausted than usual. The poor diplomat had been trying to manage human-Zephyrian relations for 3 months, and it was clearly wearing him down. "How was today's meeting with Captain Brooks?" Vextai asked. "Disturbing," Quintal replied, sitting down heavily. "He asked me about our defensive capabilities on the outer colonies. When I explained that we don't have any military presence there, he looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language." "What did he say?" "He said, and I quote, 'You can't leave your people defenseless. What if someone else like the Korthaks shows up?' Then he offered to station human ships in those systems for their protection." Vextai felt cold. "And?" "I tried to explain that we're a peaceful species, that we solve problems through diplomacy." He just smiled and said, "That's cute, we'll handle the security side of things." The problem was becoming clear. The humans didn't understand peace the way other species did. To them, peace was something you achieved through superior firepower, not negotiation. They were protecting the Zephyrians whether the Zephyrians wanted protection or not. Commander Chen had established a training program for Zephyrian defense forces. Vextai had attended 1 session and left feeling sick. The humans expected Zephyrian soldiers to fight while injured, continue operations in dangerous conditions, and accept casualties as normal. "Commander," one Zephyrian recruit had asked, "what if we negotiate with attackers instead of fighting?" Chen had stared at the recruit like he had suggested breathing underwater. "Negotiate? Son, the time for negotiation is before the shooting starts. Once someone is trying to kill you, your only job is to make sure they don't succeed." The philosophical gap between species was enormous. Zephyrians saw violence as the failure of intelligence. Humans saw violence as a tool to be used when intelligence wasn't enough. Dr. Park had been studying Zephyrian society and making disturbing observations. She explained her findings to Admiral Vextai during one of their regular meetings. "Admiral, your species evolved in paradise," she said gently. "Low gravity, abundant resources, no major predators. You never had to compete for survival. Cooperation was always the best strategy. And humans? We evolved in hell. High gravity, limited, resources, everything trying to kill us. Competition was the only way to survive. We didn't develop civilization despite our aggressive nature. We developed it because of our aggressive nature." Vextai was beginning to understand the scope of their mistake. The Zephyrians had invited a species of natural warriors into a galaxy of natural pacifists. It was like introducing a pack of wolves into a field of sheep. The most disturbing report came from Lieutenant Foster, who had been monitoring galactic communications. Other species were discussing the human problem in increasingly worried terms. The Centauri Confederation wanted to establish diplomatic relations with Earth but were afraid to make contact. The Rigel Syndicate was considering a preemptive strike against human space before the Deathworlders could expand further. Most species were simply hoping humans would stay in their own corner of the galaxy. None of them understood that humans were naturally curious and expansionist. "Sir," Foster reported, "I'm intercepting transmissions from the Galactic Council. They're debating whether to classify humans as a galactic threat or try to establish formal relations." "What are they concluding?" "They're terrified, sir. The complete destruction of the Korthak fleet has convinced everyone that humans are essentially living weapons. They don't know how to deal with the species that treats interstellar warfare as entertainment." That was the heart of the problem. During the battle, the humans had been laughing. They enjoyed the fight. They found combat exhilarating rather than horrifying. To every other species in the galaxy, this was the behavior of monsters. Captain Brooks called a meeting with the Zephyrian leadership to discuss future cooperation. He brought architectural plans for expanding the human base and proposals for joint military exercises. "We're thinking about establishing a permanent presence in this sector," Brooks explained cheerfully. "Earth Command is excited about exploring this part of the galaxy. Lots of interesting species to meet, new technologies to study, potential threats to neutralize." Ambassador Quintal tried one last time to explain Zephyrian concerns. "Captain Brooks, we appreciate your help with the Korthaks, but our people are worried about the militarization of our space." Brooks looked genuinely confused. "Militarization? Ambassador, we're providing security services. Would you rather go back to being helpless when the next aggressive species shows up? We would prefer to resolve conflicts through peaceful means." "That's a luxury you can only afford when someone else is willing to do the fighting for you," Brooks replied. "Don't worry. We'll handle the unpleasant necessities." Later that night, Admiral Vextai stood on his balcony looking up at the stars. Somewhere up there, 12 human warships were patrolling his space. On Earth, he knew, shipyards were building more vessels for galactic exploration. The humans had received their first taste of galactic civilization, and they liked what they saw. They were coming whether the galaxy was ready or not. Ambassador Quintal joined him on the balcony. "Any regrets?" he asked quietly. Vextai thought about the billions of Zephyrian lives saved from the Korthaks. Then he thought about what they had unleashed on the galaxy. "We sent an SOS to Deathworlders," he said finally. "We got exactly what we asked for. We just never imagined what that actually meant." Above them, the stars looked the same as always. But Vextai knew the galaxy would never be peaceful again. The alien ship, gentle current, floated broken in the dark between stars. Its smooth living hull was cracked open, glowing blue liquid leaking out into space. Captain Zelnara pressed her 4 thin fingers against the warning lights flashing on her control panel. Her big round eyes looked scared as she watched her ship die around her. "Send out the help signal," she told her friend Takmar, who worked the radio. "But pray it reaches the Altarian ships, or maybe the Zenthari fleet. Anyone but the monsters." The Vithrak people were peaceful. They loved science and art, not war. They had been running away from space pirates when their engine broke. Now, they were stuck in the worst part of space. This area was called the Terror Zone by other aliens. It was where the most dangerous species lived, the humans from Earth. Every alien in the galaxy knew the scary stories about humans. They came from a death world, a planet so violent and deadly that it turned them into perfect killers. The humans called their world Earth, but everyone else knew its real name, Death World Class 12. Nothing should have lived on such a horrible place, but somehow humans did. And now they had spaceships and weapons. The stories said humans were 2 meters tall with strong muscles and sharp teeth. They could see in the dark and heal from terrible wounds. They ate meat and killed for fun. Their home world had deadly storms, poisonous air and monsters everywhere. The humans had fought these monsters and won. Now they were the monsters. Zelnara looked at her crew of 23 scientists. They were explorers who studied plants and stars. They had no weapons except small defense shields. If humans found them, they would all die in horrible ways. "Maybe no one will hear our signal," said Scientist Valeth, her voice shaking with fear. "Better to die here than meet the Deathworlders." But the help signal was already flying through space, calling for anyone to save them. And somewhere in the dark something was listening, something that made the Vithrak shake with terror just thinking about it. The ship's computer started beeping. Life support was failing. The air was getting thin and cold. Zelnara had maybe 6 hours before her crew would start dying. She looked at the empty space around them and wondered if they would see another sunrise. "Captain," Tokmar said quietly, "the signal is spreading on all frequencies. Someone will hear it soon." Zelnara nodded, but felt sick inside. She knew what kinds of ships flew through this part of space, pirates who would sell them as slaves, war fleets that would use them for target practice, and worst of all, the human ships that would do things too terrible to imagine. The Vithrak were small and weak. Their bones broke easily. Their skin was soft. They ate only plants and had never hurt anyone. Against humans, they would be like children against wild animals. "Tell the crew to prepare for the worst," Zelnara said. "If Deathworlders come, we will try to die with honor." But as she spoke these words, her heart was breaking. She had a family back home. Her daughter was only 50 years old, still learning to read the star charts. She would never see her again. The distress signal kept sending over and over. "Help us. Save us. Please come." It was a desperate cry from a dying ship, floating helpless in a universe full of predators, and in the cold emptiness of space, something was already coming toward them. Something that would change everything. The Vithrak thought they knew about the most feared species in the galaxy. The humans had heard their call.